What is going on, guys? My name is TheBrokenMachine, and this is my guide to surviving in Battlefield 5. I'm sure many of you are dropping into the game today. I do hope it's going well for you. I imagine some of you are doing better than others, and a few of you are perhaps finding it a little harder to adjust to than expected. Don't worry, I've got plenty of tips to help improve your experience, your overall enjoyment of the game, help keep you alive for longer, advice on the best classes, and general gameplay tips. First things first, if you haven't figured out already, you can actually heal yourself up with bandages. All you have to do is press up on the D-pad to use those. You'll need to get yourself more of these as you move through the battlefield. So do get into the habit of visiting the resupply stations. These can be found on objective areas and around the map. If you get there and they've been destroyed, whip out your toolkit and rebuild them. Also, do recommend getting into the habit of switching your gun's fire mode when needed. You can do this by holding triangle on PS4 or Y on Xbox. Some weapons like the M1907 work much better this way, especially outside of close quarters, and you'll be less likely to spam shots and waste your ammo. This button press also changes the zeroing on the snipers. Basically, you can zero your sniper to different ranges and not have to adjust your shot. Pretty helpful. When it comes to classes though, which is best? No doubt the support class is one of them at the moment. The KE7 right now is an absolute beast. Add in a scope and you've got yourself a one-man army wrecking machine. The meta of this game does seem to revolve around scopes and more defensive play, so highly recommend you equip one for the time being. The next best class is without a doubt the Assault. The starting weapon here will see you through many battles. Do recommend getting a hold of the M1A carbine when you can. That is insane in the right hands, especially with a scope. Next best class for sure is the Medic. Its healing abilities will keep you alive and moving through the map with ease. Sadly, the current balance of the weapons here for the Medic class are lacking. The Sten is capable in the right hands, fine up close for sure, and tap firing will serve you well. However, unless your opponents are facing the other way or have no idea you're there, you'll actually find yourself struggling against players who challenge you outside of close quarters. So it's best to stick to close range and not rush out in open areas with the Medic class for the time being. You can if you play it right, but often you'll find yourself outnumbered, and the Medic class right now is pretty tricky to take on multiple opponents. Do remember, the Medic can revive everybody, however squad members can revive each other, though they do take longer. Keep that in mind before rushing out for a revive. Take a quick look around you and then pick your buddy up when safe to do so. No need for two players to be taken out, that hurts your team more than if just one guy was down. You'll notice a lot of people aren't reviving at the moment, and that's why. It takes so long to revive as a non-medic, and at the moment it's just not really worth the risk all the time. You want people to revive, but again, if two people are off the map, that's going to hurt your team more. Now, the Recon class, or the Sniper class as some people call it, is not necessarily the worst, but it's best suited to those with good aim and more defensive kind of playstyles. Do recommend equipping the throwing knives on this one, they are absolutely insane at the minute. As for weapons, I'd highly recommend the Krog and the Gewehr M95. I'll have plenty more on classes and weapon guides shortly, but for now, those are what I'd recommend, and these starting weapons will serve you well for a long time. Now also, don't forget to upgrade your weapons in the menu here. You can customize your weapon to however you like pretty much. Generally, it's either more accuracy while standing still and being stationary, or better hipfire, and there's some little bits like aiming in quicker and stuff like that. At the moment, I'm still working on guides for these, but just go for what you think works best for you. There isn't necessarily any right or wrong here, but I would recommend extended mags. That really helps you out. Again, there's nothing really wrong with either choice. There may be some little things that are a little bit better than others, but honestly, just suit your playstyle. Extended mags is good, aiming in faster is really good, so maybe stick with those for the time being. Now, how do we stop dying so much? Firstly, stop sprinting all the time. There's no need for it. You'll likely rush into more opponents than you can deal with and be exposing yourself to far too many angles. Limiting your angles of exposure is easy. Think of it like this. If you come from here, everybody inside can see you easily. Stand here, however, nobody sees you and you've limited the angles of exposure. Pretty simple. Keep this in mind as you travel around the map. It's a very simple technique that will work wonders. Also, don't rush corners, try to peek more often and assess the situation ahead as much as possible until you get a feel for the flow of the game. Do use cover as much as possible too, whatever it may be, trees, grass, bushes, anything and everything to conceal yourself when needed. When it comes to gunfights, if you have the aim, go for the head. The extra damage is worth it. As a general rule though, if your opponent is moving, you should be moving. Not always, but it's a good rule to begin with. Standing still nets you an accuracy bonus, good for medium to longer range engagements, but not so good if an opponent is already looking at you. Generally, if someone is aiming at you, bail on the situation. Reposition yourself and come back later. If you do have to engage, try spamming left and right in the middle of a gunfight. That's one good way to survive. On PC, people like to call this AD spam. It's not so easy on console to do that, but it is possible to some extent. Crouching is risky, but it may be worth it. It appears that your vertical recoil is actually reduced while crouching. I will need to do more tests on this, but that seems to be the case. Do recommend sliding not only in gunfights if needed, but also to help you get around the map. Do check out my settings guide if you haven't already. I remapped this to the right analog, and that way it's much easier to do it in the middle of a gunfight, and it doesn't really affect your aim. Generally, you'll want to play a little more defensive in this game overall than compared to BF1. Not always, of course, but it works pretty well. If you can, do try to flank as much as possible. That is where you attack your opponents from the side or from behind. Recognizing flanks will come with time, but a basic tip is to basically go behind the flag areas and attack from the rear. Do recommend you use the fortifications mechanic to help defend objectives and give attacking players a much harder time. Just whip out your toolkit and go to work. Don't just be rushing out to fortify every area though, you may give away your position early and players will come hunting. If you don't feel like you're the strongest aggressive player and taking out other enemies with your weapons, do recommend fortifying objective areas, especially in operations. If your teammates don't get to the next one, they gotta fall back in certain game modes, so if they have some cover to come back to, you'll really help out your team. Remember, you can help out your team in more ways than just shooting the enemy. When it comes to capturing flags and objectives, sitting in the middle caps the flag faster, but it is risky. It's best for neutral flags and when you have a good idea of what's happening around you. If you are aware of what's happening nearby, then it's a safe bet to sit on the capture area nearest to the opponent's side of the map. Avoid if you don't. Always remember, you don't have to capture a flag on the first try. If you're outnumbered, outgunned, come back for another attempt later on. Same goes for gunfights. It's okay to fall back now and then. When capturing a flag, keep your eyes out on this icon here. This is a good indicator of how many enemies you will be dealing with. If it's just you alone on the flag and the icon is half and half, it's a 1v1 situation. Take them on. Plenty more to go into on all these topics, of course, but here's one final tip to end with, and possibly one of the most important. Try not to be such an aggressive and reactive player all the time. It's often best to let the action unfold in front of you, see how it pans out, and adjust to it as you go along. If you give away your positions early, not only will the better players notice this and counter you easily, often the defensive players, the bipodders, the snipers, those hiding in bushes, and even the less skilled players than you will all be given such an easy opportunity to get the drop on you. Keep that in mind. Positioning has always of course been a huge part of Battlefield, but with BF5 it seems even more important than ever before. Hope all these tips help, guys. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, a dislike if you didn't, and do consider clicking that join button if you'd like to support this channel even further. Hope all is well, guys, and if you're new, do subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Take it easy.
We have taken objective Charlie.
Charges? hell?